It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
You guys, so let's bring in a legal expert here, John Yoo, of course, great constitutional expert. Professor Yoo, we love having you here on the show. We're talking about, first off, these non-citizens voting and sort of how it's happening, whether it's through this money funneling from foreign governments potentially, or also this case in Virginia where today, just a few hours ago, Glenn Youngkin, this is amazing, being forced to keep self-professed non-citizens on the voter rolls. That's what's astounding, Professor Yoo.
Hey, guys, great to be back with you. And I got to say, if you wanted to make people question the fairness and integrity of the Justice Department, here's another example. I hate to say it as someone who worked there, but under federal law, you can't allow non-citizens to vote. Why is the Justice Department using all these resources with just a few days before the election to force Virginia to let non-citizens vote? And it's not like Virginia's pursuing people. These are people, when they registered to vote, checked off a box that said they weren't citizens. So I can't see why Virginia is not allowed in 1,800 cases. There's only 1,800 cases out of 8 million people live in Virginia to make sure that those people don't vote because they told the government they weren't citizens.
That's amazing. And you know what? We were talking also, Professor Yoo, I was watching Governor Glenn Youngkin earlier, and he was saying that even he's planning to obviously appeal to the circuit court. And then ultimately, he said he'll go to the Supreme Court. But that probably won't happen till after the election, right? That it would even be heard, correct?
Right. That's right. He couldn't get to the Supreme Court before the election. He might be able to get to the circuit court. This one is called the Fourth Circuit that sits over there. He can go there on an emergency basis. And look, he's the governor. His obligation is to make sure that no non-citizens vote. And he's got a tough decision to make because this judge has said, no, you must let non-citizens vote. And that forces a governor to actually break the law. And so he has to go and try to get this higher court to reverse this judge.
John, it's Richard Weinberg. How does a judge make that ruling? I mean, how could she possibly make that ruling? I just don't understand it.
So there is this other federal law that says within 90 days of an election, you can't engage in some kind of systematic purge of the rolls. But that law is talking about going through and kicking out thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people. These are people who individually, there's no looking through the rolls for people. These are people who told the government that, right, they aren't citizens. So it's like, just the burden of proof is on them now. Generally, the governor's not saying, let's go demand everybody show us their passport and birth certificate, who the millions of people who voted Virginia. So I just think this is a trial judge who misread the law. But I really blame the Biden administration because this is just, I think, on their part, a publicity stunt that they're pulling within a week of the election to try to juice turnout in Virginia, get people riled up, when the real job of the Justice Department should be to keep people calm and fairly enforce the laws and not do it with any kind of partisan bent.
Yeah, it just looks so bad. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, Professor John Yoo, that also they had the opportunity to go back and say, like, they not only were saying we're non-citizens, then they also, according to what I was seeing from Youngkin, they actually went back and said, I just want to confirm that you're non-citizens, and if this is incorrect, come back to us. They actually gave them an opportunity to fix it in case they made a mistake saying that they're non-citizens, and they didn't come back. So or they corrected it, whatever it is. These are the ones who still remain to be self-professed non-citizens. That is just incredible. Governor Patterson, you have a comment for Professor Yoo?
Professor Yoo, I just have trouble accepting that the trial judge misread the law because the law is pretty clear. There's another law that's analogous, which you sort of eliminated in your conversation. Can you come up with any reason? Sometimes you lose a case, you may not like it, but you understand why you lost it. Can you come up with any reason why anyone should think that this is an acceptable outcome?
I mean, if the trial judge says there's this law which says states are not allowed to purge their rolls of voters systematically, like go through all of them and try to find people who don't belong there within 3 months of the election. And so this did take place within 3 months of the election. But I think the judge misread it, what Virginia was doing here. Virginia wasn't going through and looking through all the voter rolls. All they were doing was saying,
taking the ones that were already there.
People. Yeah, these are 1,800 people who said they weren't citizens. So it was our mistake to let them register. It's Virginia's mistake, actually, to let them. They're correcting their own mistake. That's why I think the governor has a really good chance of reversal on appeal if he can get up there fast enough to the circuit court.
Yep. And Professor Judge Weinberg, there's lots of stuff on the Supreme Court.
So all of a sudden, Kamala Harris, when she decides to become a little bit specific the other day, John, says that she thinks it's probably a good idea to study changing the composition of the Supreme Court. Maybe they'll add another 4 members of the court. Your thoughts on this packing of the court?
Yeah, this is something that deeply worries me. That's more important in a way than who's up, who's down, how many points Harris or Trump are up. It's what effect are these people going to have on the longer-term future, on the deeper structures of our system that has led us to be such a successful country. And one of those is we don't mess around with the Supreme Court. It's had the same number of people since 1869, 9 justices, and we've always tried to say, okay, no matter who wins the elections, we're not going to try to tamper with the court and stuff it with more people, expand the size of the court to 15, which some people have proposed.
And the reason they do that, of course, is that they don't like the results they're getting.
Yeah, look, Republicans didn't do that when the Supreme Court upheld the gay marriage when 60% of the country was against gay marriage. The Republicans could have said exactly the same thing, but they didn't. They accepted the decision. And I think Democrats should do the same thing, too, because the longer harm to the Constitution and our political system is if we start adding more justices every time somebody loses a case.
And we know that there was an attempt by President Roosevelt to do it years ago. He talked about it, and then they finally, muzzled him because it really would have been a bad place to go.
Well, it was FDR's greatest defeat. He proposed expanding the court to 15 people because the court was blocking his first New Deal. And he went down to defeat. His own party voted against him. I wish people today if people really believe in, country over party, then people in the Democratic Party should be out there saying this is wrong, too.
Absolutely. Professor John Yoo, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.